Thank you, Desiree, and welcome everyone. Francesco and I are truly thrilled to have you all with us this evening this afternoon to join us for the launch of the Travel and Hospitality chapter of the Sustainable Procurement Pledge. We've chosen this fantastic World Sustainable Procurement Day to launch, and we're thrilled to have you with us. We know we're nearing the end of a long day, so we really appreciate all of you who've stuck around with us this late, or indeed those who've joined us specifically for this session, or in fact anyone who's watching it back online and learning more about our chapter. Francesca and I have got the absolute honour of founding and co-chairing this chapter, and we're really looking forward to building a strong community of like-minded professionals who seek to drive meaningful change across the industry. As a brief introduction, my name's Simon Feeney. I've spent the last decade in the industry. I was previously with Virgin Atlantic, where among other various initiatives, I led a lot of our fleet overhaul program as we retired out our older aircraft and modernized to have actually one of the greenest fleet flying in the sky in what was a relatively short period of time. I now work for Collinson. For those of you who aren't familiar with Collinson, we're a global leader in premium travel experiences, loyalty, insurance, medical and security assistance, and the company behind brands you may have heard of, such as Priority Pass, Lounge Key, The Club, and Columbus Direct, as well as being a white label service provider across the industry. I'm really fortunate to lead both our global procurement function, and more recently, I've taken on leadership of developing and implementing an enhanced group ESG program. Now, I first joined up with the SPP early last year because I was seeking to develop my understanding of sustainability concepts. And I was immediately taken by how down to earth everyone was and relaxed in the environment. I think if you're relatively new to some of the concepts, it can sometimes feel quite intimidating to put yourself out there. But actually at the very core of SPP is a belief that many people want to become more sustainable. They have that desire, but they actually lack the knowledge, the confidence, or the leadership support to really make impactful change. So as I teamed up with them, I immediately knew I'd found a group that I wanted to both learn from, but also support wherever I can, which is where the idea for the chapter was formed. And I think as we now hopefully come towards the end of COVID and we think about the recovery of the industry, there's probably not a more important time to launch this chapter. As I reflect on my many travels, I still really believe that travel is a positive thing. It connects people, it educates people, and it really enriches lives. But we cannot deny that the industry has to make changes if we're to become truly sustainable. And as many companies and individuals alike see cutting down on travel as a way to become sustainable, it's clear that those changes are needed as quickly as possible. And I really think that collaboration is going to be key in this. And that's why I offered to found this chapter and to help bring an industry community together. I was then delighted to meet Francesco, who shared my vision.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank you very much for being here with us, because I know how hard it can be get online after this work, and especially at the end of Monday. My name is Francesca Brasca, and I've always worked in the hospitality industry, starting in the FP department, and then finding my greatest passion in procurement. I've worked for several global hotel chains, such as Marriott, Meliá, and Armani, where I managed the freeze plastic elimination project and found it very difficult to find sustainable solutions. At the beginning of 2020, I joined Accor, the world's leading hotel chain, and the first chain to make an official commitment to eliminate the plastic in the hotels by the end of 2020. I joined the SPP at the end of 2020 because I found a really important value in this association, among which the connection and the exchange of information at all the levels, with the main role of procurement in this worldwide change as only goal. This also led me, after several suggestions, to attend the master at the University of Cambridge on sustainability management, which further refocuses my thinking of importance of sharing and interconnecting professionals to challenge this big change with the idea of community and help each other. It was really inspiring for me, and delving into SDG targets with in-depth interview research, and I hope to bring to you in our future coming events. At the beginning of this year, I had the opportunity to start building this chapter with Simon, and I'm proud to launch it on this important day for us. And at this point, I would like to proceed to introduce our ideas for the launch of this chapter with this slide. On the travel and hospitality side, the last 2 years have been truly devastating, but now we are seeing a recovery and desire for people to travel. The company have had accelerated their sustainability processes, and very often the solution have been hard to find. In some circumstances, the COVID response has driven us forward in terms of sustainability, but in others, it's actually taken us backwards. And as we hopefully come out the back of COVID, we want to build a global chapter that improve acknowledge of capability and drive the interconnectedness of thinking and implementation across the industry. We truly believe that by working together, and we can accelerate the sustainable development required. The travel and hospitality is an ecosystem of its own, and all positive individual action will be beneficial. An integrated and collaborative approach should drive faster and very impactful change. The priority is to give hospitality and travel a positive footprint wherever we go, and it is our initial thinking to focus our efforts on 4 different areas. The first is to limit emission as much as possible, and to one day to reach the net carbon emission, obviously. And the second has to do with biodiversity and how you make sure you protect the planet properly and protect all the things around you. The third one is also very much related to the biodiversity, and that's food waste. Limit food waste as much as you can with the different procedure, digital tools, and make sure you have different local supplier around your business. And it's a focal point for hotels and restaurants, and obviously the company related to the travel in the world. And finally, the fall is very near to my heart, and I think it is a social elevation. By social elevation, I mean hiring, if you like enough to do so, our throat, the management of the tenders, to give opportunity to those who have never had a previous job, never had an education, giving them a chance in a life. By designing global travel and hospitality to truly uplift regions and local communities, and ensure we don't have a world where some areas are abused both socially and environmentally for the pleasure of others. For our community, the main goal is to support and develop our mission in line with this wonderful photo. We have our ideas of the evolution of the chapter, but we will not share this in any more depth today. We really want to develop a community that evolves in line with the desire and priorities of its member. Our next step will be to form a community and gather more insight as to where you would like us to head. We will seek to develop a collective plan and equip everyone with the tools to take care the intent and drive impact all across the planet. Everyone can bring value in any way with any ideas, discussion, or solution, and the exchange of opinion and the search of for continuous improvement day after day in our community as Kaizen philosophy teaches us will be fundamental. In order to bring the concept of respect for the environment and sustainability into our daily lives, which is too often not defined correctly or is sometimes ever forgotten to leave room for the profit. That space is no longer, that must be a priority for everyone to realize that our planet is only one and we must respect it as much as possible. I thank you again, and I pass the floor to Simon. We will explain how to join the chapter in various ways and before our lunch evening guest, Adrian.
Thanks, Francesco. And yeah, hopefully I love that picture. I hope you'll all agree. It really captures what we're trying to get and the essence of how we can get a central idea and really take it off around the world. So hopefully you like what you've heard so far and would be really interested in getting involved in the chapter. There's various ways you can do so. You can simply just join. We would absolutely welcome all ambassadors to join, well, the SPP in general, but specifically our chapter, and help us and contribute into the community. But actually, as a next sort of stage of our evolution, we're looking to form a chapter leadership team, and we would welcome anyone who's interested in joining us to get in touch. In the truth of it, we could probably tailor roles around people's specific interests and skill sets and what they can bring. And we say anyone who wants to speak to us, then please do. We're specifically looking at 2 real focal area roles at the moment. We're looking for some support around our social media and ambassador engagement. And if somebody can bring that skill, and also somebody who'd be interested in helping us set up and run events, and especially around the technical facilitation. But as I say, anyone who's interested, you can sign up on spp.earth, join the Travel and Hospitality chapter and communicate with us there, or you can contact us via LinkedIn. So we're now absolutely delighted to introduce our first guest speaker, Adrian Wiseman, perfectly blending the both travel and hospitality for our first session. Adrian is the founder of Arme Lounges based in Argentina. He is a highly experienced hospitality and airport lounge professional, and he's previously worked at Accor Hotels and both Air New Zealand and Star Alliance in lounge development and management roles. Sustainable development within the industry is core to Adrian's ambition, and Arme Lounges have recently become the first lounge in the world to become an officially accredited B Corp. We're absolutely thrilled to welcome Adrian, who's kindly agreed to join us today to share some great insight into his business and social elevation strategy, and how that industry can evolve using sustainable practices together. So Adrian, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Simon, Francisco, and also everybody else here for inviting me to participate and to share a little bit about the story of my small business down here in Argentina, and the story of how we became a B Corporation, or the road that we took. And I really hope to be able to give you all a little bit of food for thought about, well, especially from the perspective of a small business like a My Lounge, on how procurement practices can make a really big difference in generating social mobility and helping marginalized people and their enterprises break through some of the barriers that they face in terms of being able to find quality jobs or participate inside the formal economy. And by doing so, this helps to improve real lives and improve the lives of their families for generations to come. So I think we can move to the next slide here. And I'd like to just share with you a little bit about where our story started when we thought that we wanted to do more for the communities around us and more to help people improve their lives. And aside, obviously, from just starting the company back in 2019 to do what we do best, which is airport lounges, which, as Simon said, kind of brings together many of the familiar characteristics of different hospitality and travel products, we also couldn't avoid confronting the socio-economic context here in this part of the world, which can be pretty hard-hitting and is pretty far removed as well from the realities in perhaps Europe or North America, where everywhere in the world, I think, has their own unique context. And here, the differences between social classes is something that is really quite difficult to see at times. And obviously, despite a country like Argentina having pretty solid legal frameworks in terms of personal rights, personal freedoms, and pretty strong institutions as well as infrastructure like universal healthcare and free university education, things that really should, in theory, promote upward social mobility, the reality for millions of people, almost half the population to be exact, is anything but that. There are a lot of people that are trapped inside poverty or by various other types of glass ceilings that prevent them from being able to access good quality jobs or to be able to break into that formal economy. And not to mention the difficulty many people face in being able to access capital to be able to start or grow their own businesses. So up against this challenge, I guess one of the key turning points for us that really made the light go on inside our minds was when we were having a meeting at a regional airport in the interior of the country. And before we knew it, we were being bundled into the car of a stranger and driven to a local mayor's office, who was proudly sharing with us a portfolio of potential suppliers and workers from their town, and really very enthusiastically trying to get involved in the details of our business. And obviously, beyond the humility of the place and the town itself, we were really struck by just how much importance they were given to a very small business like our own that was wanting to invest in their region and create just a small handful of jobs. And when I say small, I'm meaning 3 or 4 jobs. And that really got us thinking that communities here in this part of the world need and expect businesses, and all businesses, not just governments or, sorry, not just the big corporations or government-owned entities, to do more to really deliver the solutions that are going to reach the people that need them most. So we were there kind of asking ourselves, you know, what more could we do to make a difference for everyday people in the communities surrounding our lounges? And I think, you know, for a product that traditionally prides itself on exclusivity and catering to perhaps the more top segments of a society, it seemed to us at the time that we were going to have a pretty big gap to bridge. So perhaps before I get into it, we can back up just for a second so that for those of you that are not familiar with what a B Corporation is, no, sorry, we were on the right side. We were on the right slide there, this one, perfect. A B Corporation is a company that's been certified by B Labs, and B Labs is an organization that works closely with the United Nations to promote the Sustainable Development Goals through harnessing the power of businesses to do more to create a healthier and more inclusive and regenerative global economy. And being certified as a B Corporation means that we're meeting the highest environmental and social standards that are measured across all areas of our business in terms of the impact that we're actually generating. And more than just a certificate, I think it's very, very important to realize that A B Corporation is a company with a legally binding commitment to external stakeholders, such as the communities around it, in addition to the shareholders. So it really is a different type of company. And now we can move on to the next slide. To give you a little bit more background of where we were coming from, obviously with so many people eating, sleeping, shopping, and lounging around airports all around the world, and with pretty strong growth prospects ahead, we can't just stand by and leave sustainability up to the airlines. There's a huge opportunity to take action right here on the ground in order to address social problems that are well within our immediate reach, even as a small business like ourselves. And that said, you know, just in addition to just seeing the opportunity to do more and why doing more is important, we also had to consider some of the challenges that we faced as a business and as an organization at the time to be able to address those problems in a more effective way that generates real impact. And as I mentioned before, somehow we needed to bridge that gap between exclusivity and inclusivity. And we also needed to put in place some formal systems to protect and sustain our policies and our programs, to enable them to really reach those communities and workers and suppliers that are traditionally excluded from doing business in the places that we operate, which is airports here in Latin America. And that takes us to the next slide. Perfect. Obviously, as a My Lounge, our brand ethos from the very beginning is all around caring. We want to invite our customers to put their trust in us to care for them as we would like to be cared for ourselves. And that also means for us caring for the world around us, far beyond our lounges, far beyond the airports. And for that reason, like so many other businesses, I guess, we turn to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as a way to try to channel our attention towards the most important issues of our time, especially those affecting marginalized people and communities, which, as I said earlier, you know, these are well within our immediate reach to be able to do something about, and they're a very real issue to us in our local context. So when it came to bridging that gap between an exclusive product and an inclusive product, we really needed to turn the traditional concept of VIP on its head and change what VIP means to us. And that's really affirming that we want to be very inclusive people. And that actually helped us to identify the things that we were able to do as a business to build a more inclusive impact strategy, and also things that were aligned to our brand and the natural way of doing things and the core business that we do on a day-to-day basis. So firstly, you know, we could really showcase our values and our culture using our lounges as a stage to a world of travelers. And then secondly, you know, we would also be able to make inclusivity and diversity part and parcel of our product, our team, and the overall way that we do business. And thirdly, you know, we could make a more conscious effort to be a more accessible company and also to be a more accessible workplace and a more accessible product for customers as well. And fourthly, we were able to make sure that the well-being of our guests was cared for in terms of making healthier choices and things like menu design and ensuring that our operating procedures and supply chain carefully considered the well-being of the planet far beyond the airport as well. And finally, but certainly not least, we could tap into the very unique profile that was offered by our customers to help turn them into our advocates and the advocates for our mission. So to really try to help influence changes in the broader community amongst their peers by trying to change the chip of what premium travel actually means to them. And now we can get into the next slide where we talk about the strategy itself. And I guess knowing that we wanted to be very inclusive people, we created a triple impact strategy to become an inclusive company. And that strategy was designed so that we could turn it obviously into measurable actions so that all areas of our business were contributing to a positive overall impact, and wherever possible in a circular and regenerative way. And, you know, while aspects such as governance, environment, and HR are also extremely important dimensions of our strategy, in the interest of time, and I guess the interest of this group, I'm going to focus really on where My Lounge is generating a positive impact for the community by creating inclusive opportunities. And much of these opportunities are actually created by our procurement practices. So like most other travel or hospitality businesses, our products and services are mostly made up of the products and services that we buy from others and serve up as our own brand of offering. So for that reason, what we're buying is our opportunity to make the most impact. And in order to try to change the way that we were generating impact and try to make that impact positive, I guess, first of all, we needed to break with some habitual or traditional thinking that our customers wanted X brand or products that look or are served in a traditional and familiar way, as in many other premium travel products. And I guess we also needed to be a bit vigilant of our own subconscious prejudices or perhaps exaggerated expectations around alternative products and suppliers, perhaps not being up to par when it comes to quality or being able to keep up with the pace. But in saying that, we also needed to be open to help them overcome those hurdles so that we could actually get them on board with us and bring them on this journey. And then secondly, we needed to make a bigger effort in order to get out there and find what kind of inclusive products and producers are actually available in the market. And, being part of a broader community of like-minded businesses on the B side of things certainly makes it a lot easier. For example, we were able to find a distributor and a catering company in Rosario that specializes in working with small and inclusive producers and community collectives, so things like community gardens and all the rest of it, which made it a lot easier to find alternative and inclusive products and bring them into our lounges. And I think one of the things is that we also need to remember that some of these micro enterprises that are capable of making a huge difference in people's lives, they don't even have a website. So finding them on your own can be a pretty big challenge. And I think that's really where the community part comes into play. And thirdly, we needed to build more of a technical framework around the way that we evaluate and onboard new vendors, including doing some due diligence to ensure that their own business practices don't compromise or conflict with any of the commitments that we have made as a company. And that especially comes down to things like labor practices, where, unfortunately in this part of the world, it is quite a common practice to hire people informally or hire people under the table, which causes a raft of social issues as a consequence. And I guess most importantly, our procurement teams really needed to understand and be supported by the board to know that we're not just looking for the cheapest or the most familiar products anymore. And we really need to keep track of where our spend is going as a company and how that spend is generating impact. And of course, I guess there is a lot more to our impact strategy as well. Outside of procurement, we're also creating opportunities for hopeful students of hospitality and tourism to overcome some of the barriers that they face in actually being able to access and complete a tertiary education, while also we're providing them with mentoring so that hopefully they can refine their soft skills, and by the time that they finish their studies, they're able to find a good quality job in the formal economy. And hopefully that job will be with us as part of our team. And that job obviously will lift them out of poverty and give them a much better future. And additionally, we also support various community projects and micro enterprises through access to capital, through a fintech platform called Sumatoria, so that one day we can try to integrate some of those products back into our supply chain in a more lasting and regenerative kind of way. And finally, one of the things that we do as well for local enterprises, especially those from marginalized backgrounds, we try to promote their products inside our lounges in order to reach a more high-flying audience, let's say. And this helps them to position their brands and their products by showcasing them in a premium setting. And I think it's something that a lot of hospitality and travel venues are able to do, because it takes very little money or effort to be able to facilitate, but it certainly makes a big difference for these entrepreneurs who are struggling to get noticed in the world. And I guess that's kind of the strategy in a nutshell. So now we can skip to the next slide, where obviously any strategy is going to translate into the product itself. And we had managed to translate or to convert our product into being a customer experience that has a purpose to be sustainable and inclusive, both front of house and back of house. And to put that into a practical example, a great percentage of the food and beverage that our guests are enjoying in the lounge is directly generating business opportunities for marginalized persons in the communities around us. And we also proudly celebrate the provenance of those products. and tell the story so that our guests can really understand that by simply supporting a business like ours and enjoying a lounge, they too are able to indirectly support a better life for less privileged people inside the communities around them. And I guess, seeing our guests' reaction to these subtle changes, to what was and remains, a high quality and sophisticated customer experience was a big relief. They loved it. And I've got to say, or I've got to admit that as someone, with a career in curating premium experiences for customers, I've always been a little bit afraid that if we were to use alternative or less well-known brands, or we were to start to serve things in less familiar or traditional ways, then somehow our customers would think that we are somehow less premium. And today, I think that that couldn't be further from the truth. But of course, the devil is always going to be in the details about how you execute things. But I do think it's true that customers are starting to change the way that they think about premium travel. As I guess the more that they get out and travel the world, the more that they're also seeing social inequality and environmental issues. And those things are not a happy sight for anyone. So the idea that your travel spend can somehow help address these issues, I guess it gives you a much stronger sense of satisfaction and purpose than perhaps enjoying a plastic bottle of water from a mountain spring on an entirely different continent, thousands of miles away, just because it's traditionally featured as being part of a premium travel or hospitality experience. And I guess this is somewhere where the entire travel and hospitality sector globally needs to be a little bit more proactive in addressing in order to help kind of evolve or change customer expectations about what premium travel should mean. And I guess, all of this is well done and said when we're talking about our own products that we control, but we also have to remember that we're a service provider to other companies as well. And those other companies often have their own clearly defined products and services that we simply need to fulfill. And I've got a lot of experience sitting on both sides of the table in my time, buying products and services and selling products and services. And I guess we often see a disconnect between organizations' stated sustainability missions and their actions when it comes to things like product design and procurement practices. And I guess some of that comes down to those fears and reservations that I was talking about earlier about embracing alternative or smaller products and suppliers. They come to the surface. And I guess also we see that the decision makers are sometimes just not empowered or equipped to be able to value anything beyond dollars and cents when it comes to potentially taking on board a new supplier or new product. And I have to say, at least in our area, having a more inclusive supply chain doesn't always mean having a cheaper supply chain. So sometimes that conflict definitely does come to the surface. And I guess for us at a My Lounge, we didn't want to repeat those habits in our company. And that's where really becoming a B Corp started to look more attractive to us, so that we didn't end up one day saying one thing and then doing the other, especially when it comes to things like our supplier and our product design, which generates the majority of the impact of our company on the world around us. So moving to the next slide, I guess this is why it's so important to try to quantify the impact of one's business and the impact that you're generating. Not only if you're interested or considering becoming a B Corporation, but sometimes just to understand, if your actions as an organization are matching your words. And I want to really briefly introduce you to this tool called the SDG Action Manager, which was developed by the United Nations together with B Labs to do just that. And it's a tool that any business can use free of charge. And I've left the link here on the presentation so that you're able to check it out for yourselves later on if you want. But really the great thing about this is that it tells you exactly where you're generating the most impact as a business. And it also highlights the areas that you need to do a bit more as well. And I guess because it is such a detailed survey of all areas of your organization, including your value chain, it can be quite the journey of self-discovery. So I would really encourage you to see if you can get your organization on board with this as well, or otherwise just have a look at it and see if you can answer some of those questions about how your part of the business is generating impact. So moving to the next slide, I guess, you know, once we had gone through and quantified the impact that our strategy was generating, it was apparent that, you know, it's one thing to make an impact and it's another thing to commit to making an impact in the future. And for us, you know, this strategy definitely paid off in terms of generating a positive impact. You know, with a final score of 92.2, we were above the average score of a non-B certified company, which is around 50 points. And we're also above the minimum threshold of 80 points that was necessary to apply to become a B Corp. And at this point, you know, I'd like to say that it was a no-brainer to hit the button and apply to become a B Corp, but we also needed to ask ourselves and have some conversations if we were really ready and willing to make this commitment. And I guess to be measured and judged by an external organization that's going to hold us accountable and make sure that our words do match our actions. And needless to say, we decided to press that button and apply precisely because of this. You know, one day as business owners, we would like to take a step back as well from the day-to-day of the running of the company. And it would be great to know that it can autonomously steer itself in the right direction without the risk of future decision makers putting short-term gains before longer-term sustainability. And not just because of the legal commitment to do so, but also because of the far wider support network that comes with it. Obviously, you know, being part of the B community, we're part of 5,000 other companies, almost 5,000 other companies, and almost 400,000 workers all around the world, actually across, I think, 78 countries, who share the same goal. So I think the opportunity to work with other like-minded organizations who can support you on your journey, it generates an enormous potential to do yet more good and to amplify the good that you're doing for the world around you. And I guess we can move on to the last slide now. And I definitely don't want to leave you thinking that a company needs to be a B Corp just to make business a force for good. But I guess one of the things that you will need to do, or any company will need to do, is make sure that the commitment is there, and also go through the journey of learning how to value things a little bit differently in order to ensure that the words of a sustainability mission and the values of a company get translated into meaningful and measurable actions. And I guess I want to just leave up on the screen here a summary about our opinions on some of the most important ways that we think, at least from as a small business, that procurement can really play a huge role in helping your own organization's commitment to social responsibility and channeling your expenditure along with a little bit of time and effort towards supporting providers that really make a difference for marginalized people. And by simply having a more inclusive and supply chain, I guess that you can be certain to some extent that your company is going to generate far more impact towards social elevation than if your procurement practices are only focused on dollars and cents. And I guess that is also one of the reasons why the Sustainable Procurement Pledge is here and has such an enormous opportunity to do a world of good for businesses all around the world. So I guess that pretty much wraps us up. If you've got any questions, perhaps we have a little bit of time to go over them. If not, feel free to connect with me after the session if there's anything that you'd like me to elaborate on. But other than that, I'd like to say a very big thank you to everyone here, and also a big thanks to Simon, Francisco, and Desiree, and the rest of you who have made today and this chapter possible. I know it's definitely been a lot of hard work to get the day set up, and also there's going to be a lot of hard work on the road ahead. So wishing you every success.
Thank you. Simon, shall I hand it to you? I think you had some questions.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, just to say, just keep an eye on time because we are going to have to end promptly because the next session starts at 8. So just to let you know.
No worries.
Okay, thank you.
No, firstly, I think on behalf of everyone on the call, thank you, Adrian, for sharing your journey, and congratulations on everything you've done so far and the vision you've put in place for your organization. I think as I was listening to you, I love the very inclusive people thing. And I think as I listen to that, it kind of makes me reflect on perhaps over many, many years, the industry itself has almost self-developed what very VIP means, and actually created some of the problems that we're now trying to unwind, and some of the things that you're looking to bring in. And it's that mindset shift that you refer to think about, actually, how do we now create a different industry? And we've said today is about rethinking across the industry. Well, how do we create a different industry that still gives people the experiences they want in a different way? So I'm going to kick off, if that's all right, because I've got two questions I've been dying to ask you. The first bit is you talk about having to change consumer behaviors and expectations, and that's part of the mission you're on, but in a way that they're going to buy into. So as we know, a big part of travel and hospitality is how you make people feel as much as what you give them. So perhaps for the people on the line, if you were to walk into an RMI lounge, then how do you do that? How do you make people feel very inclusive people?
Well, I guess it comes down to the storytelling around the products that we're using. So for example, if you're looking at the buffet, you're not just going to see a little label that says, I don't know, croissants or media lunas, as we call them here in Argentina. It's going to tell a little bit of story about where they're from and what kind of impact that's generating on the society around them. So what organization or what company is making it, and what makes that an inclusive company. Some of the other things as well, we do storytelling in some of the decor in the lounge as well. So I think, as I was saying earlier, we work with other brands to promote their products inside. And that we work with an organization called ALWA, which is a community-based women's organization from indigenous communities, to try to bring their handicrafts into the lounge, use them as decorations, but also encourage our guests to learn about the history of those products, their culture, and give them an opportunity to purchase those products online. So it's kind of providing free promotion for them. And I guess through this kind of subtle reinforcement, we're able to give the customers a sense that the product is inclusive. But if you were to walk into the lounge and expect a cup of coffee and expect to have some snacks, you're going to find exactly that. You're going to find all of the traditional characteristics of a lounge. It's more in the storytelling that we convey the inclusivity, and of course behind the scenes where it counts the most, which is where our expenditure is going.
Brilliant, thank you. I've got one more question, but I'm going to pass it back to Desiree and the floor, and if we've got time, I'll ask it at the end.
Thank you. Pierre, did you, sorry, sharing my screen, I wasn't able to see the chat. Did you see any particular questions that jumped out?
Yeah, we have a few questions popping up, and they have been also already discussed in the chat. So we have Gabriele, she's living in Spain, Mallorca, and asking about the topic that Mallorca as an island is trying to become less party and cheap tourism, and more whole year sustainable destination for biking, walking, culture, wellness, and so on. What would you recommend to prioritize? And I think that's a perfect fit for this premium versus cheap tourism that you already mentioned before.
I guess one of the things about premium travel that I find is that guests have a lot more appreciation towards the provenance of products. So that's the storytelling behind those products. So again, celebrating local products, more artisanal products, and products that perhaps you cannot find anywhere else, and bringing them into your product and service. I guess that is one way to try to, generate an impact for that local community, and to try to reinforce to customers as well that visiting your destination is about celebrating the local product. And of course, I guess, it comes down to what kind of branding you're putting around your product as well, and what kind of business that you're involved in. I guess, to try to make an entire destination change from being a party destination to being a more wholesome destination, that's going to take an effort of a multitude of businesses as well as government organizations. So I guess working together as a community to try to patch together what you want that local DNA to look like is where that change is going to come about. I'm just guessing on that one.
Yeah, and I would jump in. I say a brilliant question, thank you. And I think that's kind of the essence of this chapter. I mean, there's no easy answer to that, but it, as Adrian says, it plays to the interconnectedness of the industry, and how unless all parts of that ecosystem play the part to help communicate the vision for that destination, then the same behaviors and markets will self-perpetuate. But for many years, and there's been so many situations where travel, hospitality, venues, markets open up, get abused, don't really bring the local communities with them, and then head off to the next destination. And that's something we'd love to help try and address through this chapter.
Great, thank you. We have one more question from Colin, which is also referring to what you said, Adrian. So he's asking, to what degree is the customer always right in a service-based industry? Again, referring to this premium. To what degree does it need and is able to have a difficult conversation with itself about scope of its sustainability initiative and its own dirty washing certification immunity from claims? So that's, I think, a very, very complex question.
I guess it is. I think every business, every product is going to be different. You're always going to have things that customers must have and things that customers like to have and things that perhaps customers just like to have because they don't really stop to question it, or they're things that they've always had. And I guess the point is, don't be afraid to challenge that. I think, you know, for example, changing the way that we serve water inside the lounge from plastic bottles to having a filtered water service. This is something that I think, you know, I was always afraid that if we were to take plastic bottles out of a lounge, customers are going to hate it because they like the convenience of being able to take a bottle of water and go to the plane. But at the end of the day, you make that change and you get no complaints about it. So the customers keep coming, and your customer satisfaction scores don't get any lower. At the end of the day, why were we being so reluctant for such a long period of time, simply because we don't want to challenge that? And I guess, you know, if you were to, I'm perhaps only thinking in the world of lounges, but if you were to stop, let's say, coffee service, and obviously, you know, here in Argentina, we don't grow coffee, so we're always going to be importing coffee from somewhere else. We cannot have local coffee here. That would cause a negative reaction from the customer if we were to stop it altogether. And of course, that's something that we're not going to do. And we know that, you know, we are going to also need to work with some of the big brands out there, such as your Nespresso or such as your Coca-Cola companies. But that doesn't mean that we can't still generate a positive impact. I think where it comes down to is what percentage of your supply chain is going towards more inclusive products and what percentage is going to more traditional products. And I guess at the end, you will find a balance, so not to scare your customers away. I think there's many things that you can do. As I said earlier, you know, the devil is always in the details. So you need to look at what changes you can make that would not be noticeable to the customers, what changes you can make that would not be noticeable, but you can tell a story about, and then the changes that perhaps you don't want to make straight away and that you could leave to being something more gradual.
Great, thank you. I think that absolutely answered the question. Desiree, do we have the time for one more short question and one more short answer? Or
no, I think, yeah, unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. But this has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
What we're going to do is we're going to, as Pia's already mentioned in the chat, we are going to, and we mentioned at the start of the session, we will download this chat. We will look at your questions, make sure the panel answer the questions, and then we'll pop this digest up on the website. So you'll have a chance if there. Thank you so much for those of you who have popped questions in there we haven't had time to get to. Unfortunately, it's a very fast hour, but thank you so much, Adrian. That was fantastic, really informative, and really quite innovative in terms of ways of thinking about it outside the box and different approach to this. And also congratulations on the launch of the chapter. Simon and Francesca, it's very exciting. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with this chapter. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody, and for joining us on this very exciting day. I think if there's anything else, Simon, Francesca, are you okay?
Yeah, no, just thank you again, and look forward to seeing you in the chapter.
All right, fantastic.
Thanks, Rob, and thanks, Adrian.
Thank you.
All right, take care, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.